When thinking of rulers with the longest time on the throne, you probably think about Louis XIV, the Queen, or maybe even Queen Victoria, and yes, those are some of the longest reigning monarchs, but if you include completely sovereign states only, if you include some semi or fully dependent states, these monarchs wouldn't even make the top 15. The rulers whom we would see on that list are the likes of Maeda Tsunenori, the fourth daimyo of Kaga domain, who ruled from the age of 3, all the way up until he was 80, and Bernhard VII, the ruler of the Lordship of Lippe in the HRE, who is one of only 3 verifiable rulers that broke the 80-year rule mark in history. Things get even crazier when you include the rulers with reputed or disputed reigns, the craziest of whom is Japanese Emperor Koan, who is said to have ruled for 101 years, but this is considered a myth. What is not considered a myth, however, is the reign of Min-T, who is actually included in the Book of World Records as the ruler with the longest reputed reign, which spans 95 years. We know for a fact that he ascended the throne in 1279. At 2 years of age. What we don't know is if he ended his rule in 1374 or 1385, so he will not get the title in this video. The guy who will is King Sobhuza II of Swaziland. Even though Swaziland was not an independent state for most of his rule, he was the paramount chief and later Ngwenyama of Swaziland for 82 years and 254 days. The longest verifiable reign of any monarch in recorded history. He was born on July 22, 1899, and 4 months later his father died from dancing. So he was proclaimed by the Royal Council as king. The reason the title says that he technically ruled for 83 years is that a queen regent, his grandmother Labatsabini, ruled during his infancy and childhood. Finally, in 1921, he assumed the throne as King Ngwenyama Sobhuza II. During his reign, he successfully blended appeal to tribal custom with a capacity to manage economic and social change for his kingdom. Sobhuza also attended Queen Elizabeth II's coronation. He was a strong proponent of polygamy and is reported to have had at least 70 wives and up to 500 children. He married into prominent families in order to strengthen his political power. His son-in-law was Goodwill, king of the Zulus of South Africa, and his daughter-in-law was Zenani Mandela, who was, you guessed it, the daughter of former South African President Nelson Mandela. Sobhuza was quite influential in the events leading to Swaziland's independence from the British. He rejected the constitution proposed by the British government, instead forming a political party which contested and won elections in 1964. Sobhuza was acknowledged as king by the British in 1967. 1973, he repealed the constitution and dissolved parliament. Henceforth exercising power as an absolute ruler, the Swazi economy prospered under Sobhuza's leadership. Swaziland is rich in natural resources, and much of the land and mineral wealth originally owned by non-Swazi interests was brought under indigenous control during Sobhuza's reign. It is also important to note that Min-T is not the only one whose reign is reputed to be longer than Sobhuza's, as Pepi II Neferkare of ancient Egypt and Tejo of the ancient Korean kingdom of Goguryeo are also claimed to have reigned longer. Both breaking the 90-year mark. Pepi succeeded to the throne at the age of 6. The first one to report the length of his reign was Mendo, who wrote the history of Egypt. A major chronological source for the reigns of the kings of ancient Egypt, he is the one who attributed 94 years to Pepi's reign. This has, however, been disputed by some Egyptologists due to the absence of attested dates known for Pepi II after the 62nd year of his reign. The Turin King List, which is an ancient Egyptian papyrus which contains the most extensive list available of kings compiled by the ancient Egyptians, also has the number around 90 years. But this document dates to around 1,000 years after Pepi's death. Some Egyptologists suggest he reigned no more than 64 years. As for Tejo, he ruled over one of 3 Korean kingdoms, Goguryeo, for 113 years according to some extreme claims. Others claim he ruled for 94 years, but it is widely believed that he actually reigned for 74 years. If we go a bit south to Japan, we will find that all of their legendary emperors are said to have ruled for at least 60 to 70 years, with Emperor Koan leading the bunch with 101 years, which is of course regarded as inaccurate today. But let's step away from emperors, kings, and other monarchs and talk about presidents. The president's length of rule is, at least in most countries, restricted by the constitution or other laws, and knowing this, you will probably be shocked to hear how many years the longest ruling president in history was the leader of his state. You might be thinking it's Fidel Castro, but although he served 52 years, 2 months, and 3 days in total, he was technically head of state for only 31 years, 2 months, and 22 days. That number is inferior to the 45 years and 130 days of presidency that Manuato Atanyamafili II served for Samoa. Even Though the normal term length is 5 years, Tanyamafili was given the special lifetime term that lasted from 1962 to 2007. Close to overtaking his title is the current leader of Equatorial Guinea, Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo, who at the time of making this video is at the number of 43 years, 7 months, and 3 days. But let's head back to the list of longest verifiable reigns by sovereign rulers. Just outside the top 10 we have, maybe surprisingly, 2 Mesoamerican rulers who broke the 60-year mark, then a Monaco ruler most people never even heard of before, succeeded by 2 Asian rulers, Kangxi of China and the infamous Emperor Hirohito of Japan. Beating him by more than 300 days is James I of Aragon, who takes the 10th spot. Just above him is the already mentioned Queen Victoria, followed by Ferdinand III of Sicily. 17th place is taken by another Mesoamerican ruler whose name I am not going to butcher. And we still have one more ruler from this region. 6th spot is the guy who is probably the one to blame for starting the First World War. It's Franz Joseph. Beating him by only 34 days is the ruler who was first place for more than a millennia, Pakel the Great. The first ruler on this list to push 70 years of rule is Johann II of Liechtenstein. We made it to top 3, and there awaits us Rama IX of Thailand, who saw as many as 30 prime ministers during his long reign. Number 2 and number 1 you probably already knew. It's Queen Elizabeth and Louis XIV, the giants among giants. Oh, and if you are wondering, the longest verifiable reign of any ruler in history excluding the Regency is also that of Louis XIV, lasting for 63 years, 11 months and 25 days. That's all for today's video. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you are new. Until next time, see you around.